if these new competitors are coming in and they are coming in with a lot of money in their back pockets, I think if people are going to be building, first have some insight, look a few years down the line. My definition of luxury is very, very different to yours, I'm sure, Daniel. As a foreign guy in Finland who observes the Finns, we make a few jokes about this. I think, in general, the costs are huge as a tour operator. Most of the time, I don't know how to make ends meet. And people may agree with me or disagree with me, that's fine. But it's one of the things that I've observed. And there's a discussion I have quite often about Finland being the happiest country in the world. Why I think Finns are the happiest people in the world is that they get more time looking inwards and resolving matters from within than looking outwards. And last thing is all of these fantastic resorts slapping themselves as luxury. Remember that everybody has their own definition of luxury.
Well, Theo, hey, thank you so much for joining us today. This is the third episode of the Resaco podcast. How are you doing today, man?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, nice to meet you, Daniel. And yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So I've been looking into a little bit about the history of Silver Birch Resorts. I know that it kind of started first from Wild About Lapland. So can you just tell the listeners a little bit about how was it that Silver Birch Resorts was born out of?
It's quite a story, so I won't go too far. So Silver Birch Resort is the sister company of Wild About Lapland. And it opened a year ago in February 2025. Wild About Lapland opened in 2016 as a toimenemi, so as a self-employed person. And it was only in 2018 that I turned it into an ÖU, or a limited liability. It's been a long road. You know, when I came to Finland in 2016, I didn't have 2 pennies to push together. I couldn't afford a pair of winter boots. So I ran a tour, bought a pair of boots, ran another tour, bought a set of overalls. And after 4 years, I was able to get my first office and employ front desk, salesperson and stuff. So it's been a really slow process for me. In the last 4 years, a few things happened personally which gave me that drive to push a lot harder, which is why we've seen a lot of growth. So yeah. What about Lapland? Actually, upon finding the right piece of land, I purchased it, I think in 2022. It was just, we found the perfect pocket of land which was for Wild About Lapland to run all of its tours on, which we did for a year and a half. But then, of course, as soon as we got the land, other opportunities were very clearly available to us. So I had to start pushing.
Yeah, it kind of seems that you kind of identified a gap in the market, and it was sort of a timing thing, right? I mean, at the moment, the area is sort of seeing its tourism boom, right? And while there's a lot of competition already sort of well established and there's a lot of newcomers coming up, I mean, what is it that makes Silver Birch Resort sort of unique and stand out amongst its competitors?
Well, it's something you can't replicate. The location where we are, it's a 5-hectare peninsula with a 600-meter private road. We're completely surrounded by water. The cabins are all elevated 4 meters off the ground. And the one thing that makes us really stand out is that we won't ever be a location which is pushing for mass tourism. Mm-hmm. It's similar to Wild About Lapland. We want to stay small. We want to go to maximum 10, potentially 13 cabins. But we don't want enough beds that we get flights just for our resort. We want to keep it so it's small, it's personal, it's niche, and that when you're there, you are actually experiencing Lapland, not a tourism destination, Well, yeah, we've had some nice comments from locals saying that Finnish people would visit there, and that is something.
Wow. I guess that's sort of a testament of you're kind of heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I hope so. We also had an interesting one from the engineers saying, you're going to be fully booked in the summer just from Finnish engineers. How to build on a swamp.
Yeah, it could be. From what I know, the little bit that I know about that particular region, I know that a lot of operators sort of rely heavily on the winter season, whereas Silver Birch Resort, it is open year round. So how is it that you can make sort of a compelling offering that can be attractive year long when a lot of them are just relying on the winter?
In Wild About Lapland, we make a big effort to retain our staff throughout the year. So we have a number of people on permanent contracts, and we have another vast number of people that we really want to keep on board throughout the summer. So summer is far from profitable for us, but by keeping the resort open and keeping the tours at a cost which people can afford, in the summer we get to retain the staff. So the Silver Birch Resort, the cost of overnight stay in the summer is low, but I'd rather have it low and have it busy rather than just having it closed. So I've got a number of staff that can stay on working. It's good for them. It's good for us. And as such we're such a new concept, the Silver Birch Resort, and I don't have a hotelier background, so we don't have all of the links in the market yet. So, we kind of have to keep it open as well. And also, I don't know what else to do in the summer, so we might as well work.
Yeah, that is true. True.
We don't have an off switch. Yeah.
Well, that's always a good thing not to have, right?
Yeah, well,
sometimes. It depends if you have a family, right?
April is a tough one. There's 6 months of the season that we've just been through. We hit April and we still want to wake up every day and work. What I do. But suddenly there's less to do. So now it moves into the pre-planning for the future years. There's always something to do. And now with the resorts, we have a lot of tree felling that we have to do, a lot of pre-planning for the phase 2 build. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in the tourism industry maybe since like 2010. I was working at a big resort in Mexico, and there was a couple of guys that would talk about sort of the dream to build like a small boutique hotel, like a luxury boutique hotel. Actually thinking about it kind of sounds magical, but what is sort of the business reality actually look like now that you're doing it?
I don't know if I should say this, but I will. Everybody, they think it looks really fantastic, and I tell everybody that I've built a really shiny cage for myself. And that is kind of how it is. From the outside, of course, it may look like I've got a fantastic job, which I have. I'm really grateful for everything that the company's been able to achieve. But the day-to-day realities and the amount of moving parts required, it's a lot. It is a lot. We had 50 to 70 staff over the peak period this last winter. And with all the areas within Wild About Lapland and the resource, and any entrepreneur who's listening to this will understand the amount of moving parts, the amount of variables that one has to observe on a day-to-day basis. It's testing. And yes, it is very beautiful with those challenges. But, 15 hours a day of constant communication with staff in many areas and everybody outside of the business that is required to make it work. Yeah, you might love it or you might hate it.
Yeah, definitely those long hours. I think maybe, I don't know, and you can tell me if I'm right, but I think the feedback that you get, or sort of the reactions that you get out of your staff, out of the guests that you have, it's sort of highly rewarding compared if you were doing some kind of office job, just 16 hours a day, right?
Absolutely. If I can boast anything about my job, it's that every single day is different. One day I'm felling trees, the next day I'm cleaning mirrors, the next day I'm cleaning toilets, and the day after that, I'm talking to ultra luxury resellers from somewhere, and the next day I'm wearing a suit somewhere else, or I'm flying here, or it's I'm being told off by staff for not being there enough, or it's incredible the changes that happen on a day-to-day basis. But that is a massive joy of the job.
Beautiful. Whenever you think about pricing and positioning, when you're competing with much larger resorts, how do you manage that? How do you get the right balance or the right pricing for the product that you're offering?
It's very difficult. We've come into a market which, so I won't put any names on the table, but there are resorts in the same region as us which have higher pricing, but they have 500 beds for the peak period. And we have come in at a similar margin to them, understanding that we're new in the game and understanding that we are laying down kind of our blueprint at the moment, understanding how to get it right, not only for the staff, but for the general movement of our guests. And as we move forward into conceptualizing stage, things will change again. So of course, there on large parts, people say you have to know exactly where you're coming in, but I think on a very honest side, there's a lot of trial and error as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe some of those factors could be, if we think globally, the hospitality industry sort of, it's heavily dependent on OTAs, for example, like Booking.com and Airbnb. How do you approach those kinds of things? From the research and the data that we have seen, those bottom lines are just being squeezed by OTAs. There's nothing wrong with them. I really think that one can strike a right balance by using those as tools to get discovered by markets that you would never have been probably exposed to. But then relying heavily on them can sort of become a crutch in the long run, especially once the market stabilizes in terms of the boom, right? Right now we're at the boom. At some point, most likely that curve is going to sort of flatten, and then the real competition is really going to kick in. Have you taken those things into consideration for setting the right foundation?
Entering the market, for us, it was very important to be with the OTAs. Without those strong engines, we wouldn't have received the bookings that we have. But the squeeze and the commissions and how the market is becoming more saturated, especially in Rovaniemi, it is going to make a big difference in the next 2 to 3 years, especially on small places like mine, how they perform and what we do next. But that's why we have Resaco.
Exactly. Well, that's something that I wanted to touch base a little bit as well. From what I understand, Resaco sort of came in the picture when you were still sort of in the foundational periods of getting the resort going. What were the challenges that you were not seeing that perhaps we were able to help you?
Well, when we first started up, we had a lot of things going on. The build of the resort was extremely quick. You have to imagine 2025, I still hadn't signed any contracts with developers or for cabins or anything. And we started building in the autumn. So it was a very fast move. And then, of course, the websites had to be done, and the website wasn't up to scratch, especially from the perspective of what Resaco is saying that we need to have so that it's performing effectively. So when Resaco came in, they had a lot of work to assist us in basically having a website that ranked so that we could be competitive. So yeah, as someone who is definitely not a professional in this stuff, we really needed some assistance there. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I think, I've been a short period of time in the digital marketing industry, and I do see sometimes that just like most industries, sometimes we kind of have a bad reputation sometimes for not delivering results, right? And I think it comes down to sometimes perhaps not fully understanding what is the full scope of the industry that we're trying to serve, right? I mean, one thing is posting a pretty nice website, but the other one is really creating a sales-driven engine that has the right CTAs, right?
And understanding the internet and understanding AI and understanding everything else, all the other moving parts, which will make a huge difference in the next couple of years. Ollie, the owner of Resaco, he has a lot of insight into not just the industry, but on how to perform. And I wish I listened to all of his tips and actually activated them. But as I was saying, there's so many variables on your daily tasks. It's hard for me to start jumping on doing this every day, for example, and making the clips, to make the reels, to make AI pick you up in whatever domains you need to be.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, especially with AI, it's something that is evolving so fast that you kind of have to be on your toes all the time to see what is changing and be able to start testing, fail fast, so that you can implement the right strategies. I want to talk a little bit about for Silver Birch. I mean, what role does storytelling and content play in the marketing to attract clients, for example?
Well, we tried to do it quite a lot on social media, but I have to say, I don't know how effective it is because, of course, social media gives something that for people to follow and to observe and see what we're up to. But how many people are actually searching on Instagram for their next holiday? Or how many people are typing in what they want into their Google search and then booking it directly there? So we try to do we still do. We do a small storytelling process where throughout the build of the resort, I've just been there telling people how we're building it, what we're doing, the steps, the progress. And of course, now it's built, I'm doing a little bit less of that. But the feedback that I got from local people, from engineers, from other entrepreneurs who had similar plans, it was really nice feedback, because the filming that we did was very honest. I said to my guy Dom, we do one shot. It's the first take, and we use it, and it's natural, and it doesn't matter if people don't like it or if I fumble my words. Let's make it as human as possible. And people enjoyed it. I was talking about poo tanks and septic tanks, and just I'm not a builder, but I learned a lot through the process, and I've learned many things that I won't repeat again.
Yeah,
but
I think you strike on something important that I think, obviously for the storytelling element, it has to be honest. It can't be too curated. I mean, people can see right through that, right?
Yeah.
And with the social media content, obviously, I mean, for the region, there's a lot of the same thing that everybody's sort of posting, right? So the storytelling part, some things that I talk about with like other resort operators is, well, what is the story that you're telling people? I mean, it's not just obviously the auroras, right? But I mean, rather, what is the feeling that people are getting when they're interacting with your staff? What is the feeling that, I mean, what are the hospitality sort of nuggets that the staff can see and that they can take advantage of? I mean, sometimes it kind of seems that there's a lot of like a one size fit all kind of approach. Whereas, well, I mean, now that you've been in hospitality, that hospitality happens, it's one size fit one, right? You have to be able to spot those opportunities at the moment. Whenever somebody overhears somebody talking at the restaurant, hey, I'm planning on getting engaged, what should I do? There's like little opportunities that operators and staff can sort of take advantage of and create genuine moments, so that obviously those then can be promoted, and those come genuinely. And obviously, I'm a big fan of I don't know if you know Will Guidara.
No.
So he's the author of Unreasonable Hospitality. He was restaurant operator in New York, and he talks about how he was able to get to the number one spot in restaurants in the world by doing all the things that perhaps all the other competitors were not doing right at the moment. So one thing is competing with all competitors on what they're doing right, but also competing on with them on what they're not doing right. And you talked about that, like, the hospitality thing. So any little thing that we could spot on where we could capitalize and make a moment, we use that heavily. And because that's the truth. Maybe people won't remember what they ate at the restaurant, they'll most certainly will remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely. At the resort, we have it so that we literally have 5 cabins. So we've got 2 plus 2 per cabin. So the maximum that will ever happen at the resort at the moment is 20 people. And that's never happened. I think the most people we've had at the resort at one time are 12 guests. We have a restaurant that seats 32 people, and then we have a sofa area. But what it means is every guest who walks through that door in the morning or in the evening, they know the name of the host. The host knows their name. They ask them how their day was. They ask them how their activity was. They know which activity they did because they booked it for them when they arrived, because they requested assistance. If you're coming for dinner there, all of our guests know that when the restaurant closes, the hosts will go to the teepees and light the fires for you and take sausages down there for you. And they'll stay there with you to look for Northern Lights if you want the company. A lot of the time, the guests would like some company, but what it actually reads is make us feel safe and light the fire, and then please bugger off so we can have some private, and our staff have to understand that and read between the lines, because of course the Silver Birch Resort, the lights that we have, they only go down the road to where the cabins are, and at 11 p.m. they get dimmed to 20% so that we're not creating any light pollution for the local area. And then a little bit later on in the night, they get turned off completely. So if there's any Northern Lights, you can just step outside your cabin and see them. But it does mean that if you're on the opposite side of the peninsula where the teepees are, there's the best view to the north. There's no lights there, which doesn't, obviously, if you know Lapland, it doesn't matter. If there's no lights and there's snow on the ground, you can see, it's very safe. But if you spent your whole life in a big city, you might not feel safe because you're in Lapland. And, this winter as an example, it was a cold, cold winter. It was 15 to 35 for like 2 to 3 months. It was so, so beautiful. But that's for the locals who are used to it, For if someone's coming over from Singapore or even from Germany, it's cold. It's wild. Yeah. They know there's bears. They know there's wolves. They know there's wolverines and moose and all that stuff there. So it's we need to create a safety for our guests. So, we give them head torches. We give them stuff like that they can use to make their way back if they want it. But our job is to tell the guests what is available and to enable the guests to feel safe. So it's one of the joys that we can do very easily there because, like I said, it's 5 cabins and a full team of staff that are dedicated to those 5 cabins.
Talk to me about that. How do you train for those skills to your staff so that they can identify those moments?
Good question. A lot of the time, steel is forged in fire. It is the guests are coming in. Of course, we have our training periods with the staff and we sit and we observe and we give feedback. And throughout the trial periods, we will literally give them the basic training of how to do things. They know how to do things anyway, you would hope, if they're coming into the hospitality industry. And then it's just observing and talking after their shifts. You observe and you talk. Because every encounter that I have with staff when I'm dining, the staff will receive some feedback. And it doesn't come at you as negative feedback, but it comes at you as next time, if someone presents it like this, maybe we should move this way. The general flow of a restaurant and of course, most of the time I'm asked not to try to train people because I hire professionals who do that for me on site. I call them triple T's, Turner's top tips. So I love a few tips. Well, I'm not obviously training.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, there's always something that comes out of the owner's mind that sometimes, there's only so many things that you can see, right? And you have sort of the ultimate vision. So I think it's always very cool and interesting whenever like owners also get involved in that training process because you kind of take it from where it comes from, right?
So was that?
Yeah, no. It was just a comment, but yeah, I mean it's very interesting. I mean, I like to ask these questions because I'm besides me being in digital marketing, I like one of the things that I always look for when working with people is just the people, the things that you can learn from them and how you can impact their life in one way or another, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of ongoing competition coming in now. There's new competitors that are sort of capitalizing on the high amounts of tourism that the area is receiving. But what could be some of the market lessons that you think they should pay attention to in order to succeed? But succeeding for them, obviously, but also for the better of the region.
To keep it authentic, effectively, if these new competitors are coming in and they are coming in with a lot of money in their back pockets and with a lot of investors, a lot of the time they come in and they build something fantastic. And most of the time, what we're seeing being built in Rovaniemi, the building is generally pretty good and they have good concepts, but it's quite basic in forms of, some places have popped up without restaurants. It's just they are getting started, and the guests then they literally just have a cabin to sleep in, and from the cabin they have to spend $40 just to get to the city, to get their dinner, to spend more money to get back to the cabin. So I think if people are going to be building, first have some insight, look a few years down the line, and build a concept that you would be really proud of, something that you would like to visit with your family, with your kids, something that you need the whole experience. And the rest of my tips are not for local investors.
Of course. I mean, something a little bit more on the personal level. I mean, what does success look like to you, for both as an entrepreneur and as a person?
Goodness, that's a fab question. A couple of years ago, success meant I was financially stable. As a foreign entrepreneur in Finland, I wanted to have stability for me and my family. In the last year or two, I have felt more success in a day in the woods chopping down trees than I have felt from building my whole company. So my understanding of success is changing as the years move forwards. My values are changing. With the more stress I put myself under, my values are changing, basically. If I can choose between building the company for another 5 years or spending 5 years in the forest digging holes and chopping trees, I'd probably go for the latter. Yeah, it's a really tough one. It's the ups and downs of daily life, isn't it? Some days that it all feels a little bit too much, and other days I walk to the office and I'm like, my goodness, I'm surrounded by amazing people, and I get to talk to them every day, And then I drive to the resort and I'm like, wow, look at this place. Can't believe I get to come here and chop down a tree and have lunch and, talk to X amount of people about what we're going to do next. And then the next day, the weight of the world hits my shoulders again. And suddenly I feel like my shoulders aren't quite wide enough to carry the weight. And it's all due to one bad night's sleep, so it's, so my idea of success changes quite often.
Yeah, I think it does change for a lot of us. As once you start sort of achieving some of the things that you wanted when you were younger, at that particular point, I mean, for me, I mean, now that I have my family, I, everything revolves around them. Everything else is just sort of background noise. But yeah, I mean, of course, there's the self-fulfillment part, but just the joy of impacting somebody's life, for me, it's maybe my biggest driver, something that I try to lean on every day whenever I can.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of, was it last month? It was my first time ever going to Lapland. I went to Rovaniemi to spend time with Olli, and we toured around some of the properties, some of the resorts. And I've been in Finland for about 6 years, 6 years now. And something that struck me about the region is just the community aspect that it has that I haven't experienced. I mean, I was just there one day, and I felt more welcomed there than I have been in other places here in Finland. There's something about the Lappish people that just kind of like makes you feel like you're at home. Is that why you chose the destination?
It's not. No, we chose it because my partner at the time was doing her studies up here. But I completely agree with your experience of Rovaniemi. The people there, they are more international than other regions in Finland, and I don't know. I've lived in Helsinki a little bit, and I understand that no matter where you go, if you're a foreigner, the local people might feel a little bit inward warming, and that's normal. It's normal and it's fair. And in Rovaniemi, the local people understands that an international community is very good. In my world in Rovaniemi, I know a lot of local people. I'm lucky to have a lot of close friends there, but I also have a massive community of foreign people. And my day-to-day life, I live in an English bubble. We hire people who speak English, and we do business in English, and all of our guests speak English. And sometimes I have to remind myself that I'm in Finland, and it's very interesting like that. That is how international Rovaniemi is, the capital of the Finnish Lapland, where there's more reindeer than people.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
What is it that you think really makes the region so special besides the Northern Lights and the reindeer and Santa Claus? What do you think really is the essence of Lapland that people perhaps don't fully understand yet?
So there's a discussion I have quite often about Finland being the happiest country in the world. And obviously, as a foreign guy in Finland who observes the Finns, we make a few jokes about this because, of course, they don't look overly happy and all the rest of it. But many years ago, I made an observation that when I've traveled the world, when I was in Australia or France or Spain, or I was teaching sailing in south of France, for example, no matter where I was, there was something to observe. There was a huge amount of life, a huge amount of commotion from wild animals or different flora and fauna and flowers that you'd be observing, and everything was looking outwards. And something that I find very special about Finland is you can sit pretty much anywhere in Lapland, and you can sit for long enough that nature is beautiful, yes, and there's things to see, but your attention often turns inwards. And this is why I often say that why I think Finns are the happiest people in the world is that they get more time looking inwards and resolving matters from within than looking outwards. And people may agree with me or disagree with me, that's fine, but it's one of the things that I've observed and something that I find extremely valuable about the nature there. So when I sit down outside, I can resolve stuff that I otherwise would be less interested in because I would be entertained by the birds singing or something,
Wow, that's beautiful. Wow, yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, it is true. You know, there's something about the nature that you just can't get in any other place. I've been training for an ultra marathon, and I do a lot of my runs in the forest, and just the feeling of being in there. You know, you just can't get it by running on the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Theo, is there something that you think is highly important that we haven't discussed that you think we should discuss?
If you want to see eagles, come to the resort. Recently, I have to say, when we're talking about sitting in nature, when I sit at the Silver Birch Resort, no matter where I sit on the resort, you're pretty much looking out over the water. And the last 3 weeks, nearly every time that I've been there, I've seen a golden eagle flying above us. And now the migration is starting and the birds are all moving north. It's a fantastic time to go and just be fully immersed in nature. And last thing is all of these fantastic resorts slapping themselves as luxury. Remember that everybody has their own definition of luxury. My definition of luxury is very, very different to yours, I'm sure, Daniel. I still think that I would prefer to be sleeping in a cave and going climbing tomorrow morning. For me, that is luxury. Lying around a fire in a cave with my friends and a bottle of rum, and we go climbing the next day. What I do think is luxury at the Silver Birch Resort is the convenience of extreme comfort measured next to a massive contrast of comfort to wild. And the way that our cabins are fixed and the restaurant is fixed is you can sit in your comfort, observing the wild without feeling the extremities of it.
Beautiful. Now, I mean, I gotta check out your place.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Next time we go there, I'm gonna make sure that Ollie and I we go and pay you a visit. Theo, has been absolutely great chatting with you today. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people keep up with you and with Silver Birch Resorts?
Instagram mostly. So Silver Birch Lapland.
All right then. Well, thanks again. Theo has been absolutely great. So people, make sure you check out Silver Birch Resorts anytime you come to Finland or to Lapland. Make sure that's a place you stay. All right then. Thank you, Theo.
Thanks for your time, Daniel. Take care.